All right, the time is 6:30, so I'm going to go ahead and call the order at 6:30. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next order of business is public comment. So our order of public comment always is if we have anybody in-house that wanted to provide public comment in person, they would take first priority. We do not have anybody with us this evening, so we will go right to public comment. Online procedure is obviously in front of you, but if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. You'll be unmuted and can provide your comment at that time.
So we have one person with their hand raised, Jay Tulin. Just allow. All right, Jay, are you there?
I am there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can.
You can, good. At 470-5156, that's me. So Jay Tulin, just for the record, 39 Timberline Drive, Chair, Farmington Human Relations Commission, and also member of the Citizens Coalition for Equal Access, both of which have advocated for universal design and in particular the third-party consultant. I just wanted to share a little bit of feedback with you all from the last meeting and some information that I just kind of wanted to share. So at the last meeting, I was, for whatever value my say is worth, I was very encouraged with the fact that you had instructed Richard from TSKP to reach out and get some suggestions for some other proposals. Whether you're aware of this or not, Richard reached out to me, and we actually had a very good phone conversation about what they might be looking for, and I had suggested that he reach out to Valerie Fletcher, who's the executive director of the Institute for Human-Centered Design, who's kind of interacted with the Citizens Coalition in the past. And I know they had a conversation, and I believe that TSKP is anticipating getting something from them. That's as far as I want to go with that. The other thing that occurred to me, and I was a little surprised, and I wanted to share some information, was it seemed at the last meeting that there might have been, so I had some concern because it seemed like there might have been some misunderstanding or confusion or whatever you want to call it with some of the building committee members about what universal design is. So I may be stepping back a little bit. This may be repetitive, but I actually have a document that I got way, way back before you would even commission TSKP from Valerie from the Institute for Human-Centered Design. And I just kind of wanted to quickly read the 7 principles of universal design, and that's really all I have to say tonight. And if this is helpful information, that's great. The first is equitable use. The design does not disadvantage any group. Flexibility in use. The design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. Simple, intuitive use. Use of the design is easy to understand regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration level. Perceptible information. The design communicates necessary information effectively to the user regardless of the user's sensory abilities. Tolerance for error. The design minimizes hazards and the adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. Low physical effort. The design can be used efficiently and comfortably with a minimum of fatigue. Size and space for approach and use. Appropriate size and space is provided for approach, reach, manipulation, and use regardless of the user's body size, posture, or mobility. I may have been missing the point, but it seemed like some of the concern from various committee members was they were looking for something specific within universal design that would take them beyond ADA compliance. And I think they kind of work together. And I continue to think that the building committee utilizing this third-party consultant will be very advantageous to the process as it moves forward. I could say a lot more about that, but I just wanted to keep it brief and just give a quick reminder about what universal design actually is. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. If you want the copy of this document, I'd be happy to send it to you. Actually, Meg and Kat, I think you might have it already, but I'd be happy to send it again for whatever reference material that you might find helpful. Thanks again. I'm going to mute myself again.
Thank you, Jay.
Nope, that's it.
Okay, that's it for public comment. Thank you. Next order of business is minutes. So could I get a motion to approve the attached July 28, 2021 minutes?
So moved.
Second it. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimously approved. Item E on the agenda is correspondence. This again is correspondence received on July 24, 2021 through August 9th of 2021. We do have one piece of correspondence included in our agenda packet, so please take the opportunity to review that. Again, another reminder to attendees and to the community, this is a great way to ask questions of the building committee, so please use the form that's on the website. It is still there. And you can certainly provide comments, questions. If you're not able to come to the meeting or provide public comment, that's another way you can obviously communicate with the committee as well. So that is it for correspondence. We'll go right into item F, which is reports. First report is chair report, going to be very brief tonight. The only thing that I do want to mention is just a reminder or conversation around the Guilford tour. So we have been able to set up the first of maybe multiple, depending on scheduling. But for right now, we do have a tour of the Guilford High School scheduled for Friday, 8/13. So there is a group of people going down that have the ability to do so. To do that tour, it's about a 2-hour tour. We'll have an opportunity to ask questions and get some additional feedback about Guilford High School. So that's something that's on the agenda. I know it's tight for scheduling, so we might look at a later date maybe to try to schedule something for others if they're interested in going down as well. So just a reminder on that. So we'll move right into number 2, which is owner's rep report. We'll go right to Mark.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of things. We are preparing for our meeting with OSCGR in September. That is scheduled for September 8th at 9 a.m. So that is a virtual meeting. We will not be in person here. So we will be attending the tour Friday in Guilford. So we're excited to see that. We've been working with TSKP to establish our first design review work group meeting. So that's a lot like our professional partners work group and those things. So to look further in through the design. So we're establishing a date for our first group meeting. We met with Scott and his team with TSKP had initiated the meeting for us to identify who those key stakeholders are in certain department areas. So I think we had a great meeting. We're waiting now. Scott's going to look at the schedule, see what works best for those team members, and we'll start to meet with those groups individually to start fleshing out some of the end user concerns in those areas or comments. The other thing is we did receive proposals from TSKP for the ad services, and so we are now reviewing those proposals, putting all of that information together, and look forward to presenting that to you on the 25th at our next meeting. We've got some some numbers to work with. There were some variances between quotes, so we're making sure that our scope reviews are apples to apples, and then we'll have the opportunity to bring it back to this committee. And that's really it from us on the owner's website.
Any questions from Mark? No. Great, thank you. All right, we'll move right on to architect report.
Great, thanks very much. So I'll be brief, and then we're going to turn our attention to the progress report on the enhanced schematic design. That's a PowerPoint presentation. This is a work in progress. As Mark said, there is a design a committee that will be convening, and we'll go into those details with the design committee. But we did want to bring the committee up to speed and let you know what we've been thinking about. But we don't expect any decisions or direction at this point. I do want to follow up on one thing, and that has to do with universal design, because Jay Tulin phoned in. He is correct. I did reach out to him. I believe at the last committee meeting, I said that I was familiar with one universal design consultant who is out of Massachusetts. I referred to them as Kessler McGinnis. They've actually changed their name to KMA. Nevertheless, it's the same people. So one of the proposals we did submit through Mark is a proposal from KMA. The reason I had reached out to Jay Tulin is because I didn't know of any other universal design consultants. Certainly, we've never worked with one in Connecticut, and I was hoping that he had some names. And he did. He gave me the name of Valerie Fletcher, who is with the Institute for Human-Centered Design. They're out of Boston as well. And I had a very good conversation with Valerie Fletcher, and she understood that we were looking for a proposal. But as of tonight, I have not received another proposal. We'll certainly forward that and through Mark, should we get that before the 25th. We did have a very good meeting at Scott's office yesterday. We also met with several people from his staff. Meg, you were there, Kathy Greer, Kimberly Wynn, Alicia Bowman, Sam Kilpatrick, and Matt Ross, Director of IT. We're continuing to have meetings with our consultants, and we're also going to have a meeting with Sam Thursday. Actually, our mechanical engineers will be coming to a meeting with him, and we'll be talking about mechanical systems, pros and cons of various systems. Now, at this point, what I would like to do is turn to the PowerPoint and give you a brief overview. Gavin, you could bring that up.
Like,
Yeah.
Is it possible to turn some from light?
Yeah, there
And
is.
Joe over here on this side, Doug's got it.
Good, okay, much better.
Much better. Next slide, please, Devin. So what have we been doing? I mean, we've been actually quite busy. These are some snapshots that I took in our office in Hartford. When we were doing design charrettes in the office, you can see various people involved. There are renderings on the walls, and there are even models, as you can see, fragments of your building, and we were exploring different kinds of proportions and window openings and even the fenestration. And this is part of our normal process. We know we did schematic design before. We know that we presented material to the public. We're not straying from that, but we need to, as architects, visit it one more time to make sure that we're not overlooking anything. And this is what we'll be discussing with the design subcommittee. Next slide, please. And so we have several slides to show you just as a reminder of where we were originally. And then I'm going to ask Kaisu just to share with us what his thoughts have been during this period.
Well, as Richard said, we spent almost a month, and a number of in-house architects participated alternative design and so on. And with the model, rendering, the elevations, we had quite a lively discussion. And I'm very happy to say that among a number of different ideas, still consensus was what we proposed to you before referendum, and you presented to public seems to be the best direction based on some constructability and the cost and so on. So it is we are going to the direction we presented to you before, but there are a few other options we like to put on the table, and certainly after post estimate come in, we will know whether we can afford or not. So let me go through some of the options we are contemplating and looking into further. And this is the picture you saw, you approved and public. So it is a old brick building. Next slide, please. And this does not show very clearly well, but one of the options is rather than brick, proposing the outside skin terracotta. You know, terracotta is about 1.5 inches thick. It comes very large size, different width and profile. The reason is that if you look at the building, it has certain module, and I think to creating that grid of module really enhance idea of this building. It's very modularized building, and so that's one we like to further looking into whether for this, whether it's a better idea and so on. Now this one is both sides or one red car like we showed you before. But next slide, please. Other option is one side is more lighter tone, more warm color, because this building is a really large building, and making it entire building one color may be too overwhelming. And so we certainly like to further looking into creating the building. Classroom means 3 stories high. Classroom means red color, and administration and gym, music area is more lighter tone, and that way it's just not too messy, maybe too monotonous. So that's one thing we like to propose. Now we have done very similar things. Next slide, please. Not very sharp, but this is Bristol Green Hill Middle School, and this is a terracotta exterior, and you can see center is a lighter color and 2 classroom wing. This is the middle school wing, and this is the elementary school wing, a red color. So it does give a much interesting harmony between red and light color. Next, this is the detail of terracotta. It's a clip-on metal behind, and this is very modern, and it's very tough material. It's great material, and we like to see this posted out. Next. Again, this is a classroom side, and we are suggesting the last wing is the tech section, lower side and upper side art. That building will be a light color, so that it has soft harmony between red and light color. Next. Here is the gym north side, it's a northwest side, and this will be a light color. It's a very big building, and I think it's a lighter, more soft color, much more inviting and appealing introduction from this side. Next. Okay, so this is the elevation we're showing to you of various sides. Top one is east elevation, primary classroom wing. You see a 2-3 stories high classroom building, the red terracotta, and the right side is low level F, and upper level art, that's a more lighter colors. And middle one, just southern elevations, main entrance side, and right side, three stories, classroom, left side with administration lighter. The bottom elevation is west elevation, gym, the left side, and music and theater is right side. In between is in to capture the. So as you can see, this elevation, it does break up the big mass one monotonous one car. And but if we go to a brick building, we certainly still could do that. We can pick two different colors. Brick comes many different colors, and we can use a red brick and then pick some more lighter colors so that we create this harmony between two different colors. I'll show you our next book. Contrast to that, if you scroll all one color, you can see it is massive one color, and too overwhelming one color. So we are preparing drawings, schematic design, and we are detailing both way, terracotta, and brick, so that cost estimator able to cost it out, cost out both way, and then we make a right judgment what to do it. And certainly I would like to encourage you to visit restore school when we think we can afford that. See the example of it. So I think that
No, there's a few more.
oh, okay. Well, this floor plan it's basically saying only the difference is we are doing the survey, right?
We're doing a site survey,
The
yes.
site survey. The land actually about 3-4 feet difference from south side and north side. Land is a little high going up. So you can see the other end, there will be a seating steps, maybe 2 seating steps, like the small amphitheater. I think that really create interesting changes from this rural area. And I think it's a nice gathering place. And one just going quickly, through classroom wing, and then that's a tech area. Robotic, and this whole middle is the cafeteria area. And, right side, you can see right next to entrance, purple color is the administration, and orange color is all music and art theater, and green color is all gymnasium area. So I think it's very compact, and the relationship between each component, I think, is very well related. And the other end to that with the service entrance and be able to serve directly into kitchen and that area. And the back, that area is all service related. And you see this small blue car, that's a special.
The alternate heights.
Alternate heights too. It is separate into the backside. Next week. So now, because of the special classroom at the end, the lower level is wood and automobile, shop. So it has high ceiling height, so the 17 feet ceiling height. So when you raise that up, actually, same thing happening at upper level, series of amphitheater type of seating. And it's about 6 feet difference between that area, so it's about to get 4 steps. So that's a very nice area, students can gather and let them place and so on. And right next below that end, that's special area. Library is in the middle, yellow. Library, looking down that area. This purple is student service area, counseling. Next, and so third floor is actually just through classroom wing go up to the third floor. It is separated from the lower level, but it will be connected to 3 stairs. Yeah, I'm not sure on the stair there are 3 very spacious stairs, so we will connect each other. I think that's the floor plan.
Okay, so we've seen similar pictures before. The layout is very similar to what you've seen before, but we are examining some options that we will discuss further with the design subcommittee. But at the same time, we're developing technical drawings. These technical drawings actually show dimensions. Previously, we had refined the plan that carefully, except now you really need to establish the structural grid, the mechanical spaces, and those kinds of features. So we have to actually have dimensions everywhere. Next slide. So we're doing that at every floor level. Next. We're also doing it, next, the roof, verifying the roof pitches. Next, and skylight locations, a very detailed elevation study. Again, these are technical drawings, but if I showed you just these technical drawings, you wouldn't be able to grasp those spaces that we were talking about earlier. And we used that diagram that showed the spaces with the school administration meeting yesterday, because we asked Scott, we need to focus as we proceed into the design development, actually figuring out what goes inside all of these spaces. So that's what we're going to be doing during the coming months. Next. Cross sections as well. And then from these, we'll develop more details. Next. All of that will be important to the cost estimator when we receive this material. And the renovation of the 900 wing is part of the project. Let's not forget that. Next. So we're developing technical drawings for that portion of the project as well. That might be the last step. So that's what we've been looking at. One more thought, and then I can turn it back to you, which is the geotechnical work has been done. There have been borings done on the site. They've completed a total of 12 borings plus 3 infiltration tests. No big surprises. We found good soil. Bedrock is quite deep, so we don't have to worry about rock removal. And the footings can be conventional. They don't have to be deep footings. So all of that is good news. We'll get a formal geotechnical report from the geotechnical engineer. It may be ready by the next time we meet, but all of that information will be conveyed to the cost estimator as well, so that they know the subsurface conditions. So we are proceeding. We don't have the survey yet, but hopefully soon. That's it for my.
I'm gonna open up the questions or.
Yes, I have a question regarding the 900 wing. Would you use the two-tone terracotta? Would you use a similar comparison or?
We're probably not going to reclad the exterior of the building. All of the renovation work will be on the interior primarily. have to rebuild the southern end of the building. That southern end of the building is what touches the existing high school. So when we demolish all of the building, we're gonna have to rebuild that southern end. But the intention is, we're not gonna change the exterior. Quite frankly. It's gonna be pretty much similar to what we have.
The terracotta tiles, I had the opportunity to visit the Green Hills School the last time around with Hillary, who was on the last committee. And it was, I want to say it was probably 2016, so the school was probably 2 to 3 years old at that point. And there was already a couple of spots where there was water intrusion because it's, unlike brick and mortar, it's a tile system connected from the backside, and then there's an insulation. And I understand the energy efficiency concept behind it, where it's radiating and there's air movement between the tiles. But I would be interested in A, the cost difference, and B, what the longevity is. Because I would hate to go down the road of saving a few dollars, but then have a budget that has reoccurring maintenance in it. Understanding that most of these systems, if installed completely correctly, are perfect. Knowing that the industry that I'm in, it doesn't always get put in 100% correctly, which is where you tend to run into issues. So I'd be very interested, and I can reach out. I grew up in Bristol. I got a tour from the principal and one of the council chairman who was my gym teacher. But I'd like to get some feedback on other areas you may have used this and what it looks like now that we're 5, 6 years even after that. That's been up for 7 or 8 years, 9 years to see what kind of maintenance costs are associated with it, so that we know not just what's up front, but what we're potentially going to be facing going down the road.
Yes, of course.
There is one place leaking water penetration problem. That's where some kind of air duct was created, and the sort of that particular area was a problem, and we opened up, and installation wasn't an issue, but no other exterior had any problem.
So you're aware of it?
Should look into it, and I think the committee should be comfortable with that.
And those would be great discussions to have at our
Right.
group session. and
Yeah.
Kind of identify the
Just to
research
throw it
there.
out there, and I
Yeah,
know
I think
that,
it's great. Yeah.
that's it.
The only thing I would say is all of our buildings are brick and they have a certain look, and there's a fit and feel here in Farmington. So, just with our experience with older buildings and brick, and it, kind of stood the test of time. So we're always looking at the least amount of maintenance and the longevity of all the materials we use in our building.
I think another thing we might have to take into consideration, we're still debating on the 1928 building. So I think that you're correct, when we were driving on Route 4, we're gonna keep that. I don't know what's going on, but that's something I think we need to consider, matching the buildings that are up on that hill.
The 900,
Yeah.
all being on the same field.
Yeah, and I wasn't gonna go down the architecture point because everybody has their opinion. I personally am not a fan of very modern, but I'm just me, and it doesn't mean anything. But timeless, like Farmington's fairly traditional. And I know that although brick may not be the most flashy, it's also got a timeliness factor to it. Where I've seen too often in the houses that I build, when people do something extremely trendy or very nice, that it has a 5 to 10 year shelf life. I don't know if it applies in this case, but I know that if you use, standard hardwood floors and white kitchen cabinets, it may not be the flashiest, but it goes with everything. And in, Connecticut, New England in general, we're kind of stuck there for some reason. Unlike where I come from in Canada, where if there's a new product, it's in like the next day. Everybody has to have something brand new. So, but I share the same concerns.
Michael has a comment as well.
Sure. Question that was Richard and Tyson K. the second image that you had shown it didn't strike me that those were the terracotta tiles. It almost looked like a siding. I don't know if there was like a metal siding. What was that material that was illustrated as sort of a second option of the main entrance?
Devin's trying to pull it up for you right now.
It almost looked like very fine slotted, almost like a faux wood thing. Is that the terracotta? Not that one. No. Sorry, go back. Not that. Go back.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, on the right-hand side of the building. What is that material?
So that is terracotta, the orange
It is,
color,
okay.
brick colored material is terracotta, yes.
All right, sorry, I just didn't, and maybe it's just the proportions of things. And is there any, does IFAS or similar material ever get used on a building such as this that you guys have worked on?
This is very low end exterior material. I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay. And then not a question about any of the particular slides, but more a sense of process. At what, I appreciating that you had the opportunity to do the design charrette team with your internal team. At what point in time would a similar charrette or expansion on what you've done with schematics, taking it to the next design level, when might you envision doing a similar charrette with the folks from the high school or whoever's on the design committee? Or is that something you would consider doing?
It's a different venue. It's a different kind of discussion. When we do a charrette internally with a bunch of architects, there's a lot of jargon, a lot of references to other buildings, and you'd be peeking a little bit as how the sausage is made. I'm not sure that we would want to repeat that process because there's arguments and disagreements and so on. So we'd be happy to share the models or other sketches that we've done, but actually conducting a charrette, I'm not sure that that's the appropriate process for this design, this project going forward.
Well, I mean, we are staying basically conceptually same design as you have approved and fabric, and we are putting on the table some other possible alternative exteriors and maybe color combinations. So we're not, all over again. Definitely not going to be a good process because that really disrupt the whole timeline of what we are supposed to finish.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that there become a different way that the exterior look. And I think at some point in time, I seem to recall there was some different options of either colorization or materials. I guess what I'm looking at is a larger process of in what way will the design team or high school folks be involved. I get concerned on some level that you needed to take, based upon the competition component of what we were doing, there was a lot that needed to be done without the involvement of or maybe as much involvement as there may have existed without the competition. So I'm just looking for, in what way will the process drive involvement of the people who will use the school, either as professional staff or as students or members of the community?
Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
So during the first part of the process, we met during the competition. We did that with CSG. They were the ones who took all the notes really to get the ed specs down. And so we ran through that. Basically, we've identified every aspect of the building and then bring in either curriculum leaders, department leaders, experts in that end user part of it. So when we're talking about art, we have the K-12 art department leader in the room with us when we're talking about the library. We have our tech and our media center specialists in, and we review that. And so that happened the first part. And then what we planned through September is a similar process in which we'll bring in, depending on, we actually did it by the colors, the colors and the layout that we saw tonight in the PowerPoint. And we identified the appropriate personnel from the school and the district that would sit in on those conversations. And we're gonna go back through that again. And then hopefully we'll hear back from TSKP in terms of what they've heard and any adjustments or shifts that need to be made. And then on the student end, we had talked about Megan is gonna join in the architects as well. I have a principals advisory council. I meet with that group monthly. Since the inception of the building project, we've discussed it at every meeting. We answer questions and those types of things. So we'll come back to that group as a student focused group. They've informed us on things like early on, we were wondering, do we need lockers? Do we not need lockers? And you'll hear different answers from different kids on that, but that will help kind of drive some of those decisions too. So I do know that that's the next part of our plan. And we expect to have that completed by the 17th of September is our goal in terms of breaking that out, making sure each of those groups get to meet with the architects or whoever from TSKP is working on said part of the building.
So Michael, there will be these mini charrettes that are more focused within the departments. I want to make sure that the end users are happy and have spaces that function. So I just want to correct what I had said. There will continue to be mini functions, mini charrettes, but the whole building, I think that the configuration is past us. I think what we've done in the past month.
No, I think what you're talking about is refining how the interior space is coming together. And, as I recall, you modified where some of the classrooms might be on the first floor. I guess one of the other pieces that we're missing, in Garth no longer being on the committee, we're missing the skill set of an architect who can look, as you say, the technical drawings are a bit more less user friendly in terms of if I'm the media specialist, or if I'm the music teacher, the art teacher. And I guess maybe just to illustrate the point, if I'm recalling correctly, on the first floor, I don't think it's on the second floor, but on the first floor, there are a number of classrooms that are adjacent to the main thoroughfare, and there's glass that goes from floor to ceiling there. And last time this came up, I don't recall that the faculty were picking up on that technical design feature, but I guess I think that's a point that I'm trying to illustrate, that you might have people in a room and they look at a box and they kind of see where the windows are and the orientation of where a classroom might normally be. But if somebody doesn't possess the skills to understand what's in the drawing and what is it representing, to miss that, you might have a room that essentially could feel a bit like a fishbowl to the traffic that's going on all the time alongside it. I think those are things that I hold a deeper level of concern of, just making certain that people get it from a design perspective as to how the drawings evolve.
Yeah, those kinds of details will be talked about. We're not going to proceed with anything unless we're sure that the users are comfortable with it. So I assure you that we will be reviewing all of those details with the users as we move forward.
Michael, if I could jump in for a second, when it comes to whether the carpet should be red or blue, I don't think that that's our expertise. I mean, even in my own houses, I hire design professionals, interior designers to do those things, so they have the vision and the knowledge to do that. I think, talking about structural things, cost versus benefit on certain major items, is going to come up. I think what's very important is our visit on Friday, which I will be there, because the feedback we get, because there's a lot of similarities between this design and the one that Guilford did, the blaring ones will come out right away. Right. And those will be discussed, not just, within that, but I'm sure there's conversations with Kathy that'll come up with the superintendent there about the few things they may change. Each student will have a different opinion on backpacks, but as a whole, the principal of that school knows how many are actually using it or not. It might be somewhat anecdotal, but it will be, is it a quarter, a half, or 3/4? So some of those major questions, I think, get answered on that. And then the expertise of an IT person or someone doing AV, when I am designing houses for my clients, they have no idea whether 16 feet is enough or 18 feet is enough. They're relying A, on me, B, taking back that measurement and paralleling to something that they already have or own to say, okay, yeah, if I had 2 extra feet here, this would be great. Well, that's what you got. And so there's a lot of that goes on the micro level with some of these department heads and people that are actually doing this on the day-to-day basis. But I will tell you right now, there's no such thing as a perfect design. I design a house and people's use for a house changes every 7 to 8 years. And I know I understand this, but whether they have kids, no, I 100% agree with you. So that's where all the feedback and the expertise from TSKP and also the experiences of our owner's rep and soon to be construction manager all come into play. And I think you'll be satisfied when it's all over.
So, just wanted to know, I actually teach architecture to high school students and we read floor plans and my students design floor plans using advanced CAD software program. And I've been touring Johnny's houses actually, and he sends us the floor plan. So with that said, I was wondering when we go to Guilford, would you be able to give us maybe a floor plan of Guilford so that we can see it? And something I do with my students that really helps with the, Mike was saying it's hard to see the boxes, but I know from my own experience with students, when we study the floor plans and then they walk the space, it really helps them visualize the design and then make that connection.
We can do that.
Yeah, so I think, that was a good point. And I know that's an exercise that I do with my students and myself, that it just really helps. And maybe that will help us as a community see what's here and then like live that space, walk through the hallways and see where it all goes. That's good.
I would concur that I am one of those that likes to look at the detailed drawings with the measurements and the thicknesses. I don't need all the cross sections. I know there's probably 1,000 pages, but the first 20 or 30 that really lay out the different spaces from a 10,000-foot view are very helpful. So when I get to walk on it, I can refer to it in my head and kind of compare a little bit by little bit. But if that is an option, I would enjoy that. I'll print them myself too. I got my
We can provide you some layouts and if you're interested, a blow up of some of the spaces. And that will put things in perspective. This is how big this room is. Yes.
Or even if there's similar parts to Guilford to this plan that can be brought out to during the tour.
Sure. Well, we'll talk about all of that during the tour.
We can make a print of similar car, audit floor plan for Friday.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay, that's great.
Do we have
I would say that it shouldn't be put online, as a handout, just for secure, we don't share those.
No, understood.
Yeah, so just so you know.
Or if we can just get a paper copy.
Yeah, exactly. I just thought of like, a lot of times everything we do ends up online and everything we get. And so that's just something that I know from our security plan.
You're absolutely right.
Do we have a sense of the number?
I believe there's 9 attending.
9 attending?
Yeah.
That's manageable for sure.
9 from your end?
Yes.
We'll have probably, we may have 3 people.
Maybe 10. I will get a permit.
I'm just trying to give Richard, a sense so that we can, so that they can prepare. So if it were not knowing how many, if it were 20 or 30, then,
I will get you a number. I will get them a number so they have an idea.
I'll be here +1.
Well, thank you for your comment.
I just actually had a quick question, just so I understood the change, because you talked about elevation.
So there is a topographic change from the southern end of the new building to the northern end of the new building, and we're guesstimating it's about 3 feet, but the surveyors will confirm when they give us the survey. But in anticipation of that, Kaisu is suggesting a change in elevation on the lowest level, as well as the upper level, to accommodate that transition. But there could be an interior architectural opportunity there as well to create a,
Devin, can we just pull that up, just so everybody's seeing, sorry, so we know exactly where you're talking, right? It's in this
Page
design,
12 and 13.
where you show the stairs there?
Yeah.
Correct?
yeah, there's a change in elevation. So there is an opportunity to create tiered seating and a gathering space. I think that's what Kaisu was trying to.
I just want to make sure we're
Describe.
clear on exactly what that is. Yeah, I got it. Look, Johnny, look
Markered it
how
up.
proud I am of myself, that I actually found it. I was like, I think this is it. There it is. So
I think that was.
it's, I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about, right? Right between, we're looking at the brown corner.
Yeah.
Somebody want to point it out?
People at home may not be able to see me do this, but. So this is the southern end of the building. As you move north, the surrounding topography is higher. And we're guesstimating 3 feet. So we're trying to make a floor elevation change between this area and that area. So there's an opportunity to create some tiered seating
Okay,
in there. So that could be a breakout area with a focal point at the bottom of the tiers.
There's a ramp there, so.
that's what I was gonna ask about. That was my question about access.
It is accessible.
Yeah.
So there's a ramp, stairs, as well as an elevator.
Okay, on both levels we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is a slight change just from what we talked about before, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that change.
I think that will create very interesting, sort of, changes or variety of experience within that long, public area. And, see, right above that, there's an opening in the ceiling, and then there will be a skylight above. It's going to have some kind of very interesting climax, or should I say, in that area. I think it's a very, this not far from Silbury and Castilla, so some people go there and sit there and eat. And upstairs, there will be a similar situation with the art and all that. I think we may spill over to that gathering area. So it gives a sort of outdoor plaza kind of feeling, variety of experience.
That's helpful, thank you. Any other questions on interior? None of them?
How set is the interior?
Oh, we have to, so we would like not to shuffle departments around at this stage. What we would like to do is get into these areas, for instance, is that the correct number of seats in the gymnasium? How many teaching stations are there? Those kinds of things. Or within the music area, what sort of activity happens in those orange areas? Is it band, is it choir? Is there a need to create tiered seating? And that raises another series of challenges, but, and then what kind of storage we have in those music areas, for example. So, but we don't want to take the music area and flip it with the equal area at this stage.
So you see for the music area, the platform don't have a tier so that different activities can be happen each room. So I think you want to create one of these sort of with tiered kind of orchestra situation because they're locked in one activity.
Unless you do it with equipment.
Yeah.
But that's another question.
Good.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Light on.
All right, next report out is professional partnership subcommittee report. I know we've got a lot of documentation to discuss in new business, but is there anything in addition at this point that you want to?
No, really, it's just that the professional partnership subcommittee met last week and reviewed and approved 3 of the items that are on tonight's agenda. That is the RFP for construction management services, the draft contract for construction management services, and the interview format and questions for when we do shortlist and invite them to interviews. So we'll go into detail a little bit more when we get to those items, but those again were reviewed and approved by the partnership subcommittee.
Questions? All right, we'll go on to our final report, which is the financial report.
So no updated financial report tonight. Moving forward, because there are 3 big invoices on tonight's agenda, and those are the first invoices after the authorization at referendum, we will be creating a tracking document. Those are separate from where our committee expenses have been coming from to this point. So at the next meeting, we'll have an updated spreadsheet like we normally do, as well as a new tracking document to kind of just manage our invoicing.
That makes sense to everybody? Great, thank you for that. All right, so we'll move right on to new business. We've got quite a few documents here to review and approve. So first off, can I get a motion to review and approve the attached draft RFP for construction management services?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we'll open it up for discussion.
Just quickly, I'll go through this very briefly again. Professional partnership reviewed and approved this. This will be given to the shortlisted firms when they are selected at the first September meeting that we have. They will have an opportunity to fill this out. There are 2 sections for proposed fees. Remember, now we have 2 separate projects, so one for the new high school and one for the central office. The last couple pages are just a matrix for them to fill out so that we are able to compare the proposals apples to apples. They will then submit this to us and prior to interviews, and we will have that information before we make our final selection.
Was there any more discussion on the building permit part of it and this inspections? Did you reach out to
The building part, the fee waiver is definitely.
Okay.
Okay. And the building inspection part of it when it comes.
Yeah, so that will be updated once we get that confirmation in the final motion.
Is there a specific, is the name of the second project central office?
Yes.
Is that, it's more than central office, I guess is what I'm saying. So should it say like central office and locker space? I
think
don't
it's
know.
dependent on how we put it in for the grant application.
Correct. So for the purposes of the grant and the reimbursement rate, we want to classify it as central office. That's what I understand, but I think we can clarify that on the 8th when we sit with OSCG.
Sometimes that's just always a misunderstanding.
Yes,
Because we call it
I know it
central
feels like.
May I have your attention, please? The time is 7:30 and the kids' place will be closing in 30 minutes at 8 o'clock. The rest of the library will remain open until 9 p.m. If there are any children's materials you would like to check out, please visit the kids' place at this time.
I like this machine.
Yeah.
I feel awful as though wrong meeting.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of the library, it's like 9 o'clock, and then there's no messing around. We're out. They'll be 30 and so it could be 45 now, so yeah.
But that's a valid point, and we are meeting with Office of School Construction Grants and Review in early September, so we can just clarify that, because you're right, it is more than central office, and so the locker rooms as well.
And the locker rooms allow it to be.
Yes.
That is correct. So, and will be included in that reimbursement rate.
Okay.
So, just one, on 1.3, we just need to get rid of those 2 question marks on the.
Yeah, and fill in the scope, yep. And that will come, I'll mirror that from what we had in the RFQ.
Yep. Perfect.
Any other questions or thoughts? On the RFP for construction management services? No? All right, I'm just going to change the motion a little bit, that it would be to approve the attached draft RFP for construction management services with the anticipated corrections that we just discussed. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously approved. All right, item number 2, new business. I have a motion to review and approve the attached draft contract for construction management services.
So this draft contract there,
So
yeah. I know we're on a schedule, so I can.
9 o'clock is our deadline. Your second? All right, we'll open it up for discussion. Go, Pat.
So this draft contract is broken into 3 documents that are included here. There is only one thing left to fill in, and that is for the liquidated damages section. It would just be the total number, that dollar value that we would charge per day. We're still trying to vet that because it has to resemble costs that would actually be incurred by Farmington Public Schools in the event that the school is not complete by the deadline. So we are just finalizing some math and making sure that we have that information before we put this out. Now, this is kind of the starting point for discussions with the construction manager in terms of the negotiations for the contract. That would be handled by the professional partnership subcommittee. It is pretty strict in favor of the town, we would say, this contract is. So we wanted to put this out there as an addendum to the RFQ, kind of let people know what we were thinking before they submit their final proposal. But again, this is just a starting point for negotiations with the selected firm.
just had the town attorney look at this.
Yes, town attorney reviewed, made some adjustments, and that was prior to going to the professional partnership subcommittee.
Any other discussion or questions? Again, just to pass points, this is a starting point draft document that will be presented. I will modify the motion again, just to say this would be approval of the attached draft contract for construction management services, understanding that we need to add the additional language on liquidated damages. So that is the motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimously approved. All right, we're going. Number 3, to review and approve, can I get a motion to review and approve the interview format and questions for construction management services?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So again, this was reviewed by the professional partnership subcommittee. The interview format would be 25-minute presentation followed by 20-minute Q&A by the committee. Here are the sample interview questions that were vetted by the subcommittee, touching on some of the important factors such as the COVID-19 environment, communication with surrounding neighborhood, as well as the committee moving forward in the general public, project schedule, change orders, the workload of the firm, and the staffing support, as well as site cleanliness, safety, security of students, faculty, and staff, and experience working with the State of Connecticut Office of School Construction Grants and Review. So 8 questions that we had come up to ask at that interview, which is again conducted in public, and then we go into executive session for a decision and discussion.
And just as a side note, we also did ask feedback from CSG as well, to say kind of what experience, what makes sense, obviously customized a little bit as well for us and this project and some of our time and place concerns, as well as kind of that communication as a key factor in our project as well. So I think we have thought looking at overall what we were looking for. Once we will have a lot of information in detail, obviously with what's submitted from them directly, but this is a good opportunity to kind of dig a little deeper on some things we know are important. And
Yeah,
have
these were
thoughts
reviewed by the professional partners.
also as well, yeah. Any other questions or thoughts around this? And if the format will go, as Kat said, we will divide up the questions as we have done in the past. So the expectation is we'll all have an opportunity to ask questions. You'll have something assigned to you to ask that question. And we have then the opportunity to ask for further information during those interviews. So that format has really worked well with it for us so far. So.
And I think the idea is to potentially start that meeting a little bit earlier, like 6:30. We do have according to the RFQ, we are going to shortlist to 4 finalists, which means we will have 4 interviews. They run roughly 45 minutes, but then they will be scheduled an hour apart. So that already puts us at a 4-hour meeting. Then we go into executive session. So we can send some potential times in terms of like backing that up. It would be September 22nd, I believe is the date we set. Let me just confirm. Yes, September 22nd is the date of that meeting that we will conduct interviews. And knowing that we're in the library and have a hard deadline, we need to just make sure we're planning accordingly.
Will we have a rule to go along with this as well?
Yeah, typically what we do for the interviews is we give like the questions and then some paper for you to fill out.
Okay.
Fill in the answers and take some notes.
Any other thoughts or questions? Matt? All right, so all in favor to approve the interview format and questions for construction management services?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously approved. All right, we're going to go right into our final 3 new business items, which are invoice approval. So the documentation was included in the agenda packet, so you do have that available to you. So the first, can I make a motion to approve the attached invoice from Construction Solutions Group in the amount of $23,627?
So
Second.
Discussion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously approved. Item number 5, a motion to approve the attached invoice from TSKP Studio in the amount of $292,500.
So moved.
second.
Discussion.
And again, I'll just add for this and CSG, this was for the month of July. We should anticipate invoices like this moving forward.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously approved. And final item, motion to approve the attached invoice from TSKP Studio in the amount of $12,500.
Second.
Discussion.
And this one, the only difference is the first one was from Farmington High School design. The second one is for central office / locker room design. And we are separating those because again, it is 2 projects. We're going to have 2 different books on them and run them separately.
So just keep that in mind as we go through. You will see duplicates of invoices for that reason. It just helps us overall for reimbursement. It helps us just tracking projects and everything else. So we'll do our best to stay on top of that as we go through. All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimously approved. All right, only item left is adjournment. So can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we will adjourn at 7:40.